Balancing a game is a difficult task. There's a fine line between fun to use and broken nonsense. And this is perhaps most apparent in competitive shooters. There's one weapon class that's more difficult to balance compared to all others, especially when portrayed in a realistic manner. Of course, I'm talking about submachine guns. The idea of a submachine gun was first conceived in the early 1900s. There were many different concepts for this type of weapon, but they all boiled down to a similar result: a compact weapon that fired a pistol caliber with the capability of being fired in full automatic. The first mass-produced submachine gun was the MP-18. This was a firearm adopted by the German Army in 1918. Towards the end of the First World War. Compared to other firearms of the time, it was fairly unorthodox. It fired the 9x19mm cartridge, fed from box magazines, and perhaps most importantly, was capable of full automatic fire. The weapon was meant for the close quarters combat of trench warfare, and though it saw limited use during World War I, the MP-18s that did make it to the front lines proved to be very effective. A relatively lightweight and compact weapon that was capable of full automatic fire turned out to be an incredibly important asset for close quarters combat. While the MP-18 wasn't the first submachine gun to enter service as a combat weapon, it was certainly the first mass-produced of its type. Since the MP-18, there have been many different types of submachine guns that have been created. But while technology certainly has advanced over the past 100 years, the function of a submachine gun has not dramatically changed. A weapon firing a pistol caliber in full automatic remains a solid choice for close quarters. But within the realm of close quarters, there's a huge variety of different settings. Whether providing security for a VIP or executing a high-risk warrant, CQB can occur in many different settings. Even trench warfare, the original type of close quarters combat the MP-18 was designed for, has reared its ugly head once again. And with these different settings come different threats. Where a typical unarmored threat would be quite vulnerable to pistol rounds, the same cannot be said for one that is equipped with body armor. Generally speaking, handgun rounds struggle to penetrate body armor. An adversary wearing armor who takes a handgun round will undoubtedly be hurt, but will likely still be able to fight back. And with the ever-growing popularity of body armor, this is a situation that's more and more likely to occur. Even taking armor out of the equation, rifle rounds generally perform better ballistically than handgun rounds, not to mention being more effective at further distances. It's for this reason that a number of units are slowly phasing out submachine guns in favor of short barrel rifles for close quarters. Nevertheless, submachine guns remain an important tool for close quarters. Being able to fire a burst of rounds relatively accurately is still a valuable asset to have. All this is to say that submachine guns have played an important role in the firearms world for the past 100 years, and will likely continue to see use for a very long time. Because of the popularity of submachine guns in the real world, it's no surprise that they show up in many different video games. Their representation in these games is usually at least reflective of their real-life counterparts. Capable of firing accurate bursts up close, submachine guns in games are typically menaces when the fighting gets personal. To represent their use of pistol calibers, submachine guns in games usually do less damage per shot compared to their larger relatives. This helps them somewhat ground them in reality, and also serves to balance them in-game. Typically, this class of weapon is also less effective at further distances, just like their real counterparts. Obviously, different submachine guns will have different traits that distinguish each one. Different reloads, damage values, and rate of fires all serve to make each submachine gun feel distinct enough to justify using them all. But despite these differences, most video game submachine guns are generally fairly similar. They don't have much recoil, do less damage than rifles, and are fairly accurate when fired in full automatic. Weapons in games are usually balanced with a purpose in mind. Submachine guns are intended to be effective at close quarters, while firearms like bolt-action rifles are meant to be used at longer distances. For years, this is the method of weapon balancing that has been used in the majority of shooters, and is still how most of them are balanced to this day. But what happens when the lines between these roles blur? Traditionally, submachine guns in games are intended to be used up close. But while that's generally remained true, there are some games where submachine guns are just as effective at range as their larger counterparts, if not more. Ballistics in real life is a complicated subject. There are a number of factors that can impact the effective distance of a bullet. Even two cartridges fired from the exact same type of firearm can perform differently depending on the environment. And in real life, bullets aren't lasers. At a certain point, the round will lose its velocity and drop to the ground. But in games, ballistics is usually simplified to just damage numbers. Bigger bullets do more damage, while smaller bullets do less. And in many games, bullets do behave like lasers, traveling onwards until they reach the world limit. In this simplified system, a handgun round behaves identically to a rifle round. The only difference is the amount of damage the bullet does to a player. So, when you have a weapon that has less recoil, fires a bullet with unlimited range, and holds a large amount of ammunition, it makes sense to go for that option. And in many shooters, that's the case with submachine guns. And as an additional advantage, these games also often make the submachine guns quicker to manipulate, to represent their lighter weight in real life. Or to put it another way, when an assault rifle is just a slower version of a submachine gun with more recoil, it makes sense why players who want the most dominant weapon will gravitate to the latter. The bias towards submachine guns in games is exacerbated by the fact that most gunfights in games are at relatively close distances. You don't need a large caliber rifle when most of your gunfights occur within 20 meters. When it comes to competitive shooters, the preference for submachine guns becomes even more apparent. Gunfights in games are a simple matter of who can land more shots and reduce the other person's health to zero first. So in many situations, the weapon that can fire more bullets faster will win. Generally speaking, most submachine guns fire faster than assault rifles. So when games depict submachine guns with their correct rate of fire, that means their video game counterparts also fire much faster than rifles. And when who wins is a question of who can put more shots on target faster, these faster firing weapons are typically preferred by players. And with less recoil, it's often easier for players to hit targets out to much further than their real counterparts. In some cases, this means that submachine guns are more effective at range than even rifles. This is entirely unrealistic, but a byproduct of how submachine guns are represented in these games. It's for this reason that submachine guns are such a challenge to balance properly in multiplayer games. The combination of low recoil and a fast fire rate means that they usually outclass most other options, given the close nature of firefights in video games. Because when you have a weapon that's easier to make hits compared to every other gun, why choose anything else? If you're not cheating, you're not trying. Words that have been spoken by some of the most competitive individuals on the planet. While actual cheating in video games is a despicable practice, everyone who wants to win will gravitate towards the optimal choices, the most overpowered characters, the best loadouts, and of course, the fastest firing submachine guns. Perhaps in the future, there'll be a solution for making these weapons in games feel more fair. But for now, submachine guns remain the top choice in the gaming world.